Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. You know what time it is. Our first deep dive for NHL 26 has arrived. It is, of course, gameplay focused, and I'm going to sit here and talk about my thoughts about what they had to talk about and show off. I am going to be pausing the video throughout this. I'm going to be talking over the thing the whole time. If you haven't seen the trailer in full, in it the way it was meant to be viewed, the link is in the description. But if for whatever reason you care about my thoughts and opinions, well, you have come to the right place, as I am just going to let this go for the moment because there's some info that'll be relevant, and I'll pause at that point. But in a general sense, when you talk about this deep dive, the biggest thing to take away from it, aside from the fact that, okay, in terms of pre-ordering, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this guy has an affiliation with EA. He has for years. He's going to kiss ass and be like, oh, it's going to be the greatest game of all time. Based off of EA's track record so far this year, it's not my recommendation to pre-order this game. If you care that much about a slight boost to Ultimate Team, if you know your friends are going to get it to play ESHL, cool, go ahead, do what you want to do. But in a general sense, we've seen it with college football. I am definitely experiencing it with Madden right now. You get that pre-ordered version of the game, you're not really getting the full game, because the day one patch that typically drops with all new games now, that doesn't come out until the end of the early access period on the actual launch day. Like with Madden right now, the day one patch is on Thursday. I've been playing it all damn week. Played it all through the weekend. We're still not playing like the actual version of Madden that's going to be out on launch day. So keep that in mind. If you're not a big Ultimate Team person, it's not really worth, pre-ordering this game right now. And why would it be? But the first big thing that they get into is IceQ 2.0. You know me, I hate the frickin' buzzwords and marketing speak, but we saw this in the reveal trailer that they are tying it in a lot more to NHL Edge. Throughout the video, they kind of talk about, hey, here's what NHL Edge is, here's what it tracks, here's how they track it. How it's relevant to us with this game is that they have enhanced 3 different gameplay systems using NHL Edge. The presentation, which we already knew about, which is, again, showing how hard a shot is, how fast some guy was skating, but also through attributes and tendencies. Now, attributes, it's very promising, the way they talk about this, and they show examples coming up in a moment of just being like, here, look, this guy, through Edge, it says he's supposed to be faster, so he's faster. That's what we've been begging for people who care about rosters. I've been using NHL Edge for a couple years. That's how I've been setting things up. It's great to see if it's implemented properly, and I really, really do hope it is. Because an example like this of showing, like, oh, Ovi, his attributes are going to be more on point. He goes to the Ovi spot for the one-timer. They have hyped that up before, So I don't blame anybody for being skeptical, myself included, based on that thought when, again, how many times have we seen, oh, don't worry, Ovi plays like Ovi, in the trailers over the last couple of years? It's been a couple of times, really. They also mentioned tendencies as well, like Ovi going to the Ovi spot or like Nathan McKinnon being aggressive on the forecheck. And I do wonder, is it tied into the X factors? Is it tied into the player types? Are there going to be more under the hood things that we get control of now? Because tendencies in hockey games were always more of a 2K thing. Literally, you could dictate how often someone took a slap shot versus a wrist shot. NHL, the only tendency we've ever had, and here's your examples of using like speed boost and the highest skating speed that they registered. But in NHL, the only tendency thing that we've had to be able to edit is the shot pass slider. And that was in the game for years. We just couldn't control it. We couldn't edit that. That's why in like NHL 18, you could have a sniper who would never shoot the goddamn puck, and it's because he was set to always essentially pass the puck. So I do wonder, is it a new system? Is it something that was always there that we get more control over? Is it more tied into X factors, stuff like that? And we'll see, ultimately. They talk about it as well. Tendencies, there's apparently 22 of them at launch, and they influence essentially everything about the game. They're continuing to advertise, hey, if you play against someone like a Crosby or a Bedard, they're going to play like them. They're going to play like their player type indicates. We'll see. It's not the first time that we've heard, hey, we're trying to set it up to have players play more like themselves. Granted, if you have that NHL Edge data to be able to use directly, then in theory, it should work, right? It should. And I'm somewhat hopeful and optimistic, right? But like the AI, if they're going to start using more stretch passes and stuff like that, like, again, it all sounds really, really good, especially if it's more than just this type of on-screen presentation and you actually start to get more accurate representations of these players, because as you will know if you've been a viewer of mine for a long time, I will scream about this until the end of my days, until they, actually potentially fix it, although that's cool to show like the face-off percentages. When you have more accurate rosters, it enhances Play Now, it enhances Franchise Mode, it enhances Be a Pro. Instead of having every player feel the damn same because you have a 36 to 99 rating scale, but you barely use anything below a 70, We'll see how drastic they go, though, because I presume overalls are still in the game, and it's very difficult to have high overall players that aren't magically good at everything just off of how they've set up the game. EA loves overalls. I don't think that system's going away anytime soon, even though it would be great if it did. I don't need some arbitrary number to tell me if a guy's good. Let me look at his attributes and be like, oh shit, this guy's got a hell of a shot. He sucks at everything else, though. Is that worth the risk for me? There'd certainly be some more interesting ways to do it. But I digress. They're also talking about some of the new camera angles that are in the game. And, some of them do look good as well. Kind of more freeform cameras, stuff like that. The next big thing to talk about is the goalie crease control system, which the gist of it is we've made goalies better. We've also heard that before in the past. But there is no denying, you look at some of these animations. You look at a goalie reacting and then adjusting by getting the elbow up there. They talk about like the laying down and staying down things. But even in the past, they talked about improving goalies. You are going to see animations throughout this where goalies are definitely better. I have seen gameplay footage that cannot be made public yet of some really ridiculous goalie saves in this game. You do have examples of goalies still getting beat by shots where you're like, oh, god damn it. So, yeah, don't expect goalies to be insane. Don't be disappointed when they let in bad shots. That's just the nature of the beast. But they've definitely added more animations. They've made it so that the goalies do a much better job of combining animations and reacting better to certain saves. A lot less examples of just like what the hell was that? And in general too, they kind of hyped up like the responsiveness, the positional awareness. One of the big things that they mentioned was the AI being smarter based on goalie types. Like in theory, you're going to see smaller goalies be more aggressive because they have to cut off the angles, whereas bigger goalies might sit deeper back in their crease. But they also mentioned that goalies are better at tracking wraparounds, some sharp angle chances, more backdoor passes. We'll see, right? That's always going to be one of those elements where they say, hey, we've improved goalies. There's never really going to be a perfect solution. There just isn't, because it's something where it's like, hey, guess what? It is realistic to have bad shots just go in, and it's annoying. One of the things they didn't talk about here, though, as well, goalies are now a bit more faster and consistent when covering pucks. They have just kind of smoother, like, hey, they made the saves. They don't have to transition to another animation to actually cover the puck. It'll just be frozen. So they have put in a lot of work in regards to goaltenders. We'll see. We'll see what it looks like once we get the full game, though. It does sound promising, but it also in some ways does sound like things that we've heard before. And I think that's one of my big takeaways when it comes to this trailer, is it's essentially talking about expanding upon certain things that they've worked on in the past and that a good amount of the player base are disappointed in. If you can hit the mark here and actually improve those things that people were disappointed in, you're doing well. But if it doesn't work out, then it just becomes another example of, cool, you said you worked on this and you didn't, so now I'm supposed to believe you again. Even if that's not the fault of the people in charge of the game now, it's the years and years of marketing and potential shortcomings that sets up whoever is in charge of this game. It sets them up for that type of reaction, right or wrong. That is just the way that it is. So keep that in mind. But yeah, in general with goalies, supposed to be better. You have, of course, everything that we talked about with Edge, and then the last thing is the reworked X Factors, which is another interesting element, right? Of saying, like, hey, we worked on X Factors. You get the example here to showcase how it's already different already, and we'll go into detail in a second here on a screen coming up. This is what X Factors look like now. We don't just have silver and gold. We have different levels to these, in which the amount that it affects things is laid out plain and simple for you in terms of percentages, instead of just guessing, okay, well, how much does this actually change anything? So it's 28 X Factors across those 5 different categories. They gave examples in the blog post about the Rocket, and they'll give an example with Evan Bouchard of like slap shots, and if you have good timing, goalies just kind of being like, what the fuck was that? That's a little bit scary. Also mentioning that successful dekes with ankle breakers can cause more panic from, the defenders and stuff like that. But you get a look at, say, beauty backhand, or ankle breaker, I should say there. Create separation, again, successful dekes can trigger larger panic. Big rig, of course, still works pretty much the same way, but you now have something more exclusive to big rig options. Surprise goalies with enhanced accuracy and power with one-handed shots. We saw that in the reveal trailer, and that's kind of the general theme of this that they were aiming for, is not only, do you know that there's supposed to be an effect, but they also try to add a visual element to what you see on the ice with these abilities, in terms of like, oh, okay, it's going to be very obvious that, that maxed out elite wheels, it's going to be very obvious when it's working, which that is a very nice change, right? Instead of questioning like, okay, well, did that work? Did that not? It's going to become pretty obvious. You do have an ability to like second win there as well with energy recovery. Of course, send it and tape to tape are still there. Pretty much in, similar forms, ankle breaker, big rig, unstoppable. Here's one that is very concerning. Now, they do mention in the blog post, based on community feedback, that we have changed hip check tuning. They've been adjusted based on how they were being used, particularly in forechecking scenarios. That's all this game has been over the last 2 years, is if you have the puck as a defender, guess what? Someone's about to try to hip check you. We wanted to address the scenario where players would skate directly at the puck area and quickly flip 180 degrees to deliver a full force hip check. This wasn't aligned with how they were intended to function. To address this, hip check strength is now reduced based on turn angle. If you need to rotate sharply into the animation, the check becomes less effective. This encourages better alignment and more realistic use of body positioning, which of course would be more along the boards when someone is skating at you. Research Rob Blake, kids, if you do not know. I'm intrigued, though. I'm intrigued at how this works, and if that higher level ability might just help that still work like it did previously. And then obviously some people will be concerned because it mentions that hip checks will cause the opposing players to lose their stick if you perfectly line it up. I'm intrigued, right? But it's definitely scary, but at least they mention like, hey, we've worked on this. They also mentioned changing up some things in regards to vision control. In NHL 26, we've added a penalty, 2 consecutive pivot overrides. So if you noticed how people were kind of skating and doing the crazy puck protection last year, that's supposed to be nerfed. They also mentioned nerfing and rebalancing reverse checks. So those were a couple of things that they didn't mention through this video to also keep an eye out on. But if we go back here to goaltending, of course, post-to-post is still there. Sponge for the rebounds. Unlocks additional windmill reactions and eliminate goalie reactions when shots hit up too high. So in theory, shot hits you high, goes over the top and into the back of the net. In theory, that shouldn't happen as much anymore with these particular animations in the game. We will see what happens, of course. But in theory, that's what you got. There's an example of one of the one-handed shots that you get for Big Rig. That example with Tage Thompson. We'll slow down the video playback here. And you get a look there. Just a quick little one-handed shovel on through Big Rig, which I think looks pretty good. It makes Big Rig more usable, which has been, I don't want to say completely irrelevant as an X factor for a while, but kind of. Again, hipsters, stick them up. Quick pick, you get more animations, right? And they show an example here of, all right, here's Barkov with quick pick, and there you go, gold quick pick. It activates. He gets this animation, which, you know, that type of interception, I think most people have wanted that in the game for goddamn years, and I think most people won't be happy it's tied to something like an X Factor, but at least it's there. We got that going for us. A block for Cider with Warrior triggering, so that might have either outright replaced Ice Pack or be like an enhanced version of it. Gudis that you see with one of the hip checks. Of course, not all hip checks along the board. I'd rather see a hip check be effective there than how it's been effective in the game the past couple of years. I'll say that. And then Evan Bouchard on a nice little save there by Bobrovsky. Again, more reacting to it. Here comes the Bouchard shot that they talked about. In fairness, that goaltender is screened to death. So obviously, Evan Bouchard, he's going to score there without a goddamn X Factor. There's no chance you're saving that. Sorry to Dustin Wolf. This one right here, again, rookie difficulty. Like Crosby just roofing a fucking backhand from the goddamn circle. Beating a goalie top shelf is fucking nuts, even if it is a Flyers goalie. But you see there. And it looks like it's probably limited to just 3 abilities this year instead of 1 gold and 5 silvers. But Crosby, at least in this example, we don't know if this is going to be the full thing, has the triple elite of Backhand Beauty Unstoppable and Big Tipper. Big Tipper unlocks deflections with increased range. I know a lot of people, especially human goalies, are going to be very concerned about that for the EASHL side of things. We'll have to wait and see. Big Tipper, of course, has been viewed as a menace for years. A lot of leagues have banned that ability, and I can't even necessarily disagree with the idea. But in terms of a trailer, it looks promising. It's not going to be one of those things. I don't know what, from a gameplay perspective, they could do with a trailer that would have people go like, oh, holy shit. Let me know. What would it take for them if this didn't do it? From a gameplay trailer perspective, and only from a gameplay perspective, what would they have to do? But hyping up the goalie changes, which again, promising, like visually you can see that they are doing different things, whether or not they're effective, who knows. The X Factor changes. You're going to be seeing different things, very obvious examples of like, oh shit, okay, that's why that shot was that crazy. He has that X Factor. But how's the balancing going to be? And then, of course, the biggest thing for me is how they're using the NHL Edge data and just what more is kind of going to happen with that and just how things are going to be utilized. And we'll wait and see. You know, I hate to say it. We are just kind of right back in the same spot as every year, aren't we? Cautiously optimistic, hoping for the best. It certainly looks promising. But am I holding my breath that this is going to be the game people have been waiting for over a decade? Not necessarily, but you never know. Maybe they've finally been able to put all those different pieces together and have been able to provide the hockey game that people have been waiting for. We'll see. Let me know your thoughts, of course, on this trailer. Again, check it out in full. Links in the description without my dumbass talking over it. And I will see you all for whatever the next deep dive we get is. Again, we are less than a month away from this game being out. Kind of crazy that is the case. But yeah, hey, here we are. And I'll see you guys next time.